Why does Arcane and Into the Spider-Verse look like this, and the Japanese cartoons my cousin forces me to watch look like this? Well, the 2 seasons of Arcane reportedly cost $250 million. The cost structure of 3D animation doesn't really work this way, but divide that by 18 episodes and you get just under 14 million US dollars per episode. Sources vary, but the average TV anime is made for somewhere in the realm of $100,000 per episode. Sometimes more, often less. Forget half-length episodes and 3 minutes of intro and outro. We are talking about an order of magnitude less than what The Simpsons and Family Guy cost. Never mind Arcane. Ghost in the Shell's standalone complex is still rumored to be among the most expensive TV anime productions of all time. It was originally on pay-per-view and justified it. Elite anime. 30 million yen per episode, or $400,000 today. $14 million per episode of Arcane is not just a lot compared to Japanese animation resources. That is more than the average for Game of Thrones, and there is a very short list of television productions which have cost more than that. Much of this will come down to the difference in wage expectations and purchasing power parity between Japan and France or North America, as well as workplace unionization. But that can't explain all of the massive gap that we see. Money flows differently for a 3D animation production versus the traditional anime. Like, see a cool piece of very high production value 3D action animation. There might have been one action choreographer, but each model and effect on screen could represent hundreds of man-hours from multiple specialists, never mind the amount of processing power to render and re-render. It can scale over longer series where you can reuse all the assets, and you'll often see a mixed media approach with some 2D art, which saves resources. But there is a reason that short-form 3D animation with lots of unique models and effects work, like the Halo 2 remastered cutscenes, can cost an eye-watering amount on a dollars per minute basis. Compare that to the sickest scene of an action anime. There might have been storyboarders and directors who blocked out what the scene looked like. The background might have been drawn by another specialist. But for Sakuga, you are primarily looking at the work of just one animator for a given cut of animation. They drew all the main lines here. Japan has made spinning out animation cheaply into an art form just as much as the art itself. All of the coloring and in-between detail work is, for better or for worse, considered to be a lower-skilled task, and is carefully divided up to be outsourced to other studios and often out of country. There's a whole constellation of studios specializing in supporting anime outside of Japan, from South Korea to the Philippines to Taiwan. Speaking of Taiwan, Greece Israel. A solid 2/3 of One Piece is produced by the Toei Philippines branch at a frighteningly small average budget of 10 million yen per episode. It's even harder to take dollar value estimates at face value when they might bounce between multiple currency exchanges and international purchasing power differentials. Anyways, what's my point? You could get off into the weeds counting dollars, especially when you start comparing anime against each other. But there's a bigger picture when you compare Japan against animation on the global stage. There is a lot to say for how abused and underpaid anime staff are, and the higher production value of the hitherto rare Western competitors. The flip side is that anime is cheap. Really cheap. More so than the shorter runtimes and macroeconomics explain on their own. Which means it can be niche. The old rule of thumb was the Manabi line, that a 13-episode late-night anime only had to clear 3,000 disc set sales to break even. The product only needed to strongly appeal to perhaps 10,000 people. Of course, this has meant 2 decades of anime studios caressing and stroking the gooner demographic for a quick buck. But it's also meant that all kinds of way out there anime have been made over the years. The only way a Kaiba or a Paranoia Agent or a Serial Experiments Lane get made is with an understanding that only a few people need to enjoy it and a quantity of money that the relevant creditors could risk not getting back. Imagine proposing Dungeon Meshi to a room full of suits. The manga on the face seems broadly appealing, it's critically acclaimed, and has sold well. Studio Trigger is what passes for a reliable hitmaker when it comes to anime, even for as much as $10 million. It's not a big gamble to them, if it's Netflix you're talking to. They've probably spent more for 2 episodes of a TV series. Start throwing around a solid fraction of $1 billion, an Arcane scale budget. And I think at the very least you would be getting some more pointed questions about what kind of anime you would be making. I write this in the shadow of reports that as of Season 2, Arcane has proven to be a financial fizzle. As well written and as beautiful as it is, and how much acclaim it has attracted, it is not on track to recoup the tremendous amount that it cost. But I also think that Riot didn't sign off on this big of a spend with a certainty of turning a direct profit on it. This partly seemed like a prestige project to project their status and dominance over the media landscape, but it also could have been a loss leader, a very wide and deep net for advertising the game which must not be named. And there are supposedly spin off series on the way, which might be much less lavishly produced, but able to draft on the goodwill from Arcane. The landscape for adult animation is changing, not just thanks to Arcane, but thanks to less ambitious works like Love, Death, and Robot, as well as the cousins and progeny of the DCAU. At some level, all of this streaming competition in the West is injecting additional resources into Japanese anime as well, even if it's hard to tell how much. But at the end of the day, there is a merit to how cheap and niche and strange anime has been. And it seems it will continue to be that way for some time.